Admiral Zextharaz's 6 eyes focused on the tactical display floating before her command throne. The holographic representation showed the gathered might of 3 galactic powers, her own Keth Dominion fleet of sleek, crystal-hulled vessels, the brutal iron wedges of the Goric Empire, and the organic living ships of the Veltar Collective. Never before had such a coalition assembled in the same star system. The meeting point was a neutral zone near the edge of explored space, where ancient treaties prevented any single power from claiming dominance. Zextharaz's mandibles clicked nervously as she reviewed the intelligence reports one final time. Humanity, a species that had emerged from the galactic rim barely 50 cycles ago, yet had somehow carved out a small but growing territory in what should have been empty space. Admiral, her chief tactical officer, Mordan, spoke through the ship's bioneural link. The human delegation approaches. Single vessel, as agreed upon. Zextharaz straightened in her throne. The 3 fleets had come to this meeting with one purpose: to evaluate this new species and determine their threat level. Early encounters had been concerning. Human traders were aggressive negotiators. Human explorers pushed into dangerous regions without proper caution. Human colonies grew at alarming rates despite hostile environments. "Display the approaching vessel," she commanded. The tactical hologram shifted, zooming in on a shape emerging from hyperspace. Zextharaz's 6 eyes widened in what her species considered shock. The ship was wrong. Where Keth vessels flowed like liquid crystal and Goric ships projected brutal efficiency, the human vessel appeared almost primitive. Dark metal hull plating, angular geometry, visible weapon hardpoints that seemed almost crude in their obvious purpose. Scans indicate a vessel approximately 800 meters in length, Mordan reported. Mass suggests heavy armor plating. Energy signatures are unusual. From the Goric flagship, a communication burst arrived. Warchief Thakgar's voice rumbled through the translation matrix. "Keth fools, this is what concerns you? A metal box with guns." Admiral Velnaris of the Collective added her ethereal tones to the channel. "The organic scans show minimal life support systems. Perhaps they are mostly artificial beings." Zextharaz studied the human ship more carefully. Something felt wrong about it. Her species had evolved as apex predators on a world filled with dangerous creatures, and her instincts whispered warnings she couldn't quite understand. "Admiral," her science officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Display it." The hologram flickered, then resolved into the image of a human male. Zextharaz had seen humans before in diplomatic footage, but seeing one directly was different. The biped was smaller than a Keth warrior, lacking the natural armor of a Goric, showing none of the graceful modifications of the Veltar. Yet something in those small, forward-facing eyes made her primary heart skip a beat. "Greetings," the human said in accented but clear galactic standard. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Navy vessel Indomitable. I understand you wish to discuss humanity's place in this galaxy." Warchief Thakgar's image appeared on a secondary channel. "Human, we have come to determine if your species poses a threat to established order. Submit to inspection of your vessel and provide complete technical specifications." Captain Chin's mouth curved in what Zextharaz recognized as a human expression of amusement. "I'm afraid that's not how this works, Warchief. We're here for diplomatic discussion, not submission." The temperature in Zextharaz's command center seemed to drop. In over 300 cycles of military service, she had never heard anyone refuse a direct demand from a Goric war chief. Thakgar's response was predictably explosive. "Insolent prey creature. You dare refuse the Goric Empire? Your tiny ship faces the combined might of 3 galactic powers." Captain Chin's expression never changed. "And your 3 fleets face 1 human warship. I suggest we keep things civil." Zextharaz felt her predator instincts screaming now. Something was very, very wrong with this situation. A single ship, no matter how well armed, should not position itself against 3 full battle fleets. The human either possessed technology beyond anything in the known galaxy, or was completely insane. "Captain Chun," Admiral Velnaris interjected with her species' characteristic attempt at peace. "Surely you understand the disparity in numbers here? We have brought these fleets not for aggression, but to properly evaluate your species' capabilities." "And we appreciate that," Chun replied. which is why we brought an evaluation ship of our own. The human's words sent ice through Zextharas' circulatory system. Evaluation ship? The Indomitable is designed specifically for first contact scenarios where our capabilities need to be demonstrated clearly. We find it prevents misunderstandings. On the tactical display, Zexthara watched energy readings from the human ship begin to climb. Not weapons charging, something else. Something her sensors couldn't quite identify. Human, Thokgar snarled. You try our patience. Stand down your systems, and prepare for boarding. Captain Chin's image tilted her head slightly. War Chief, I need to be very clear about something. The 3 fleets you've assembled represent approximately 15,000 warships. That's quite impressive by galactic standards. But you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about human military doctrine. Enlighten us, Zexthara found herself saying, though she dreaded the answer. You see warfare as a matter of numbers and firepower. Bigger fleets, stronger shields, more guns. It's a very traditional approach. Humans learned early that the universe doesn't care about your traditions. The energy readings from the Indomitable spiked again. Zexthara's sensors finally identified the signature. The human ship was charging what appeared to be a gravitational manipulation device. Captain, Velnaris said carefully, what exactly is your ship doing? Demonstrating a key difference in our approaches to warfare, Chen replied calmly. You brought fleets to intimidate us. We brought a single ship to protect ourselves. The question is, which approach is more effective? Before anyone could respond, space around the human ship began to distort. Zexthara watched in growing horror as the Indomitable seemed to fold reality around itself. The ship's mass signature multiplied impossibly, first doubling, then increasing by orders of magnitude. Impossible, Mordan whispered. Gravitational readings suggest the vessel now masses equivalent to a small moon. Warchief Thokgar's image flickered with interference from the gravitational distortions. What sorcery is this? Not sorcery, Captain Chen said, her voice still perfectly calm. Physics. Specifically, controlled gravitational field generation. The Indomitable is currently generating a gravitational well equivalent to roughly 50 times its normal mass. But that's just the beginning. The space around all 3 fleets suddenly felt different. Zexthara's instruments detected massive gravitational fluctuations washing over them in waves. Her ship's compensation systems strained to maintain stable flight. You see, when humans first reached space, we discovered something interesting about gravity wells. They're not just useful for propulsion or defense. They can be projected. Zexthara's blood turned to ice as she realized what the human was implying. A species that could manipulate gravity could do far more than build better ships. They could affect other ships at a distance. Captain Chun, she said carefully, are you suggesting your species has weaponized gravitational manipulation? The human smile was small but terrifying. Admiral Zexthara, what do you think would happen to your beautiful crystal hull if I increased local gravity around your ship by a factor of 10, 20, 50? The implications hit Zexthara like a plasma bolt to the chest. Every ship in all 3 fleets, every vessel in the known galaxy, was built with specific gravitational tolerances. Structural materials, power systems, life support. Everything was designed to function under standard gravitational conditions. You could crush our ships without firing a shot, she breathed. Or I could decrease local gravity and watch you tear yourselves apart when your structural compensation systems overcompensate, Chin added helpfully. Really, gravity is wonderfully versatile once you learn to manipulate it properly. Admiral Velnaris's image showed the pale coloration that indicated extreme stress in her species. This changes everything. The balance of galactic power remains exactly as it was before you learned about us, Captain Chin said firmly. Humanity has no interest in conquest or galactic domination. We simply want to be left alone to develop in peace. But we also won't tolerate being bullied by superior numbers. Warchief Thokgar had been silent for several moments, his expression showing the calculating look that had made the Goric Empire the terror of half the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice carried a new tone of respect. Human, this demonstration of yours. How many of your ships possess this capability? Chin's smile widened slightly. War Chief, that would be telling. But I will say this. The Indomitable is hardly our most advanced vessel. It's what we use for diplomatic meetings. The silence that followed stretched across 3 fleets and 15,000 ships. Zexthara felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. First contact protocols would need to be completely rewritten. Military doctrines would require fundamental revision. The entire galactic balance of power had shifted in the space of a single conversation. Captain Chun, she said finally, I believe we should discuss establishing formal diplomatic relations between humanity and our respective governments. I was hoping you'd say that, Chun replied. Shall we begin? The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the first contact reports reaching the core worlds. Representatives from dozens of species filled the ancient chamber on Nexus Prime, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolutionary diversity that normally inspired awe. Today, however, the mood was anything but celebratory. Counselor Prime Velthak, the ancient Etherian who had overseen galactic politics for nearly 4 centuries, called the assembly to order with a gesture from his crystalline appendages. We have gathered to address what may be the most significant development in galactic history since the formation of this council. Admiral Zexthara stood at the central podium, her usual military composure strained by recent events. 3 standard days had passed since the encounter with Captain Chun, and those days had been filled with frantic communications, emergency strategy sessions, and the gradual realization that everything they thought they knew about warfare had become obsolete. Honorable counselors, she began, I stand before you to report on humanity's demonstrated technological capabilities. What we witnessed was not merely advanced engineering. It was a fundamental redefinition of space combat doctrine. Representative Morgath of the Silicon Collectives leaned forward, his metallic voice ringing through the chamber's acoustics. Admiral, you claim these humans can manipulate gravity at will. Our physicists find this claim difficult to accept. Zexthara activated the holographic display system, filling the chamber with tactical readouts from the encounter. Honorable Representative, I would have agreed with your physicists 4 days ago. However, the evidence is undeniable. The hologram showed the Indomitable's gravitational signature fluctuations, the impossible mass readings, the way space itself had bent around the human vessel. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly as representatives saw the data for themselves. Warchief Thakgar, participating via subspace link from his flagship, added his gravelly voice to the discussion. The humans spoke truth. I tested their claims by ordering a probe to approach their vessel. At 50,000 kilometers distance, the probe was crushed to molecular dust by gravitational shear. Counselor Yurix of the Hive Minds raised her primary speaker. If these readings are accurate, then no existing vessel in our combined fleets could survive direct engagement with human gravitational weapons. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every military strategist in the chamber was running calculations, and all of them reached the same terrifying conclusion. In a single technological leap, humanity had rendered the entire galactic military paradigm obsolete. Admiral Velnaris materialized her bioform at her assigned station, the collective's representative appearing as a graceful merger of organic and technological components. We must consider the possibility that this demonstration was merely a fraction of their true capabilities. If their diplomatic vessel possesses such power, what might their actual warships be capable of? Zexthara had been wondering the same thing for 3 sleepless nights. Admiral Velnaris raises our most critical concern. Captain Chin specifically stated that the Indomitable was not their most advanced vessel. She called it what they use for diplomatic meetings. The chamber erupted in alarmed vocalizations from dozens of species. Counselor Prime Velthak raised his hand for silence, his ancient authority still commanding respect even in crisis. We must approach this situation with careful consideration, the Etherian said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. History shows us that first contact with technologically superior species has 2 possible outcomes: peaceful coexistence or complete subjugation. Representative Kexlar of the warrior caste slammed his armored fist against his console. We cannot simply accept human dominance. The galaxy has maintained balance for 1,000 cycles. One upstart species cannot be allowed to upset that order. And how exactly would you propose to stop them? Admiral Zexthara asked pointedly. Every weapon system we possess relies on conventional physics. Kinetic projectiles, energy beams, explosive warheads. All of these become irrelevant when your opponent can manipulate gravity itself. War Chief Thakgar's image flickered as he leaned closer to his transmission equipment. The Keth Admiral speaks wisdom. I have commanded fleets for 60 cycles. I have conquered star systems and broken enemy fleets like glass. But, against gravitational manipulation, numbers mean nothing. Armor becomes a liability. Speed is irrelevant when space itself bends around you. Dr. Yexinda, the Council's chief scientific advisor, activated her workstation. I have been analyzing the sensor data continuously since receiving it. The implications extend far beyond military applications. If humans have truly mastered gravitational control, they possess capabilities that approach those of the ancient precursors. The mention of the precursors sent a chill through the chamber. The mysterious race that had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind only incomprehensible technology and star-spanning megastructures. The idea that humanity might possess similar capabilities was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. We must initiate formal diplomatic contact immediately, Counselor Prime Velthak declared. Admiral Zexthara, you will return to human space with a full diplomatic delegation. We must understand their intentions and capabilities. With respect, Counselor Prime, Zexthara replied. I believe we should consider a different approach. Based on my interaction with Captain Chun, humans seem to respond better to straightforward honesty than traditional diplomatic maneuvering. Representative Kixtal of the Trade Federation buzzed with agitation. Admiral, you cannot seriously suggest abandoning established protocols. Diplomacy requires careful negotiation, strategic positioning, calculated exchanges of information. And what happens when your carefully calculated strategy meets an opponent who can crush your negotiation fleet by thinking hard about gravity? Thakgar interjected. The Goric Empire has built its power on strength and intimidation. But intimidation requires the threat to be credible. We cannot threaten beings who could turn our ships into metallic pancakes. Admiral Velnaris shaped her bioform into a configuration indicating deep thought. The war chief raises a critical point. Traditional power dynamics assume relative technological parity. When one side possesses overwhelming technological superiority, conventional diplomatic strategy becomes not just ineffective, but potentially dangerous. Dr. Yexinda brought up additional data displays. My analysis suggests that humans have approached technological development from a fundamentally different perspective than galactic civilization. Where we have focused on incremental improvements to established technologies, they appear to have pursued completely novel approaches to fundamental problems. Explain, Counselor Prime Velthak commanded. Consider our approach to space combat. We developed better armor materials, more efficient weapons, stronger shields. All improvements to existing concepts. Humans appear to have asked a different question. Why fight in space at all when you can control space itself? The scientist's words created a profound silence. Zexthara found herself remembering Captain Chen's calm demeanor, the way she had discussed gravitational manipulation as if it were routine engineering. There's something else, Zexthara said quietly. During our conversation, Captain Chen mentioned that humans learned their approach to warfare from the universe, not caring about traditions. I believe she was referring to their homeworld environment. Elaborate, Admiral, Velthak requested. Earth, according to our limited intelligence, is what we would classify as a Class 12 death world. Extreme weather patterns, frequent natural disasters, aggressive native species, and gravitational fluctuations due to an unusually large moon. Humans evolved in an environment that constantly tried to kill them through natural forces they couldn't fight conventionally. Representative Morgatha's metallic form shifted with what passed for surprise among his species. You suggest they developed gravitational technology as an environmental adaptation? I suggest they developed it because their survival depended on learning to work with forces beyond their direct control. While we perfected tools to fight each other, they perfected tools to survive in a universe actively hostile to their existence. War Chief Thakgar's expression showed the grudging respect of one warrior recognizing another. A species forged by constant battle against impossible odds. That would explain their confidence when facing superior numbers. Admiral Valneris reformed her biopattern into one indicating concern. If this assessment is correct, then we face a species that views galactic civilization as merely another environmental challenge to be overcome. Our military might, our political structures, our economic systems, all just forces of nature to be managed rather than powers to be feared. The implications were staggering. Humanity didn't see the galaxy's major powers as threats or allies. They saw them as weather patterns to be predicted and prepared for. We need to fundamentally reconsider our approach, Counselor Prime Velthak decided. Admiral Zexthara, you will indeed return to human space, but not with threats or traditional diplomatic posturing. We will approach them as equals seeking understanding. Counselor Prime, Representative Kexlar protested, we represent thousands of worlds and trillions of beings. Surely we cannot treat a species of barely 50 billion as equals. Admiral Zexthara turned to face the warrior caste representative. Representative Kexlar, those 50 billion beings could eliminate our fleets without leaving their home system. I suggest we recalibrate our definition of equality. The chamber fell silent again as the full scope of their situation settled over the assembly. They were no longer the dominant powers in the galaxy. Humanity had claimed that position through technological superiority so complete it made numbers irrelevant. One final consideration, Dr. Yexinda added. Captain Chin specifically stated that humanity has no interest in conquest or galactic domination. If true, this presents an unprecedented situation, a species with the power to rule the galaxy that chooses not to exercise that power. The question, Counselor Prime Velthak said slowly, is whether we can coexist with such beings, or whether the very existence of their capabilities makes conflict inevitable. As the council session continued into the night, one fact became increasingly clear. The galaxy had changed forever. The only question now was whether that change would bring peace or annihilation. 6 months after the first encounter, Admiral Zexthara found herself in a place she never could have imagined, aboard a human space station, drinking something called coffee, and discussing interstellar policy with beings who could unmake her fleet with a thought. Terra Station hung in Earth's outer system like a metal flower, its rotating sections creating artificial gravity for the comfort of visiting aliens. Through the massive transparisteel windows of the diplomatic wing, Zexthara could see Earth itself, the blue-white marble that had produced the galaxy's newest apex predators. More coffee, Admiral? Captain Chen asked, holding up a ceramic container filled with the dark liquid humans seemed to consume constantly. Please, Zexthara replied, extending her cup. The past months had taught her to appreciate human customs, particularly their inexplicable fondness for caffeinated beverages during important discussions. Around the conference table sat representatives from across human space, military officers, scientists, diplomats, and civilians whose inclusion still puzzled the galactic delegation. Admiral Valneris had adapted her bioform to a more compact configuration, while War Chief Thakgar attended via hologram, his massive form too large for human-scaled furniture. I still find it difficult to understand your governmental structure, Valneris admitted, her organic components shifting to indicate confusion. You include non-military personnel in strategic discussions? Commander Sarah Martinez, Terra Station's diplomatic liaison, smiled warmly. Admiral, in human society, the military serves the civilian population, not the other way around. Major decisions about humanity's future involve everyone who will be affected by those decisions. Dr. James Wright, Earth's foremost expert on gravitational physics, leaned back in his chair with the casual confidence that still amazed alien observers. Besides, the technology you're all so concerned about wasn't developed by the military. It came from civilian research programs trying to make space travel safer for colonists. This revelation had been perhaps the most shocking discovery of the extended diplomatic talks. Humanity's most devastating military capability had begun as a civilian safety project. Artificial gravity generators designed to protect passenger ships from the sudden gravitational shears that occurred near certain stellar phenomena. Dr. Wright, Zexthara said carefully, when you first achieved gravitational manipulation, did your people immediately recognize its military applications? The scientist looked genuinely surprised by the question. Military applications? Admiral, our first thought was that we could finally build space elevators without massive structural support systems. The military potential didn't occur to us until years later. Thakgar's holographic form shifted, the war chief's expression showing the bewilderment of a career soldier trying to understand a species that accidentally invented superweapons while trying to improve construction projects. Your species develops ultimate weapons by accident. Not exactly, Captain Chen interjected. Humans tend to develop technology to solve immediate problems. Military applications usually come later, if at all. Our gravitational manipulation started with construction, moved to transportation, and only became militarized when we realized we might need to defend ourselves. Admiral Velnaris reformed her vocal structures to produce a sound that approximated human laughter. You weaponized your construction equipment? The Indomitable's gravitational generators are essentially scaled-up versions of the units we use to position orbital habitats, Commander Martinez confirmed. When Captain Chen demonstrated their capabilities to your fleets, she was basically showing off our civil engineering equipment. The implications sent another wave of unease through the alien representatives. If human construction tools could annihilate galactic fleets, what could their actual weapons accomplish? Dr. Wright seemed to sense their discomfort. Look, I understand why this worries you. But here's the thing about humans. We're builders first, fighters second. We prefer to create rather than destroy. It's just that sometimes the tools we build for creation can be repurposed for destruction if necessary. Speaking of building, Captain Chen said, activating a holographic display. We have a proposal that might interest your governments. The display showed star charts of local space, with human territories marked in blue and various alien holdings in different colors. But overlaying the political boundaries were trade routes, resource flows, and what appeared to be proposed infrastructure projects. The Galactic Council has expressed concern about humanity's technological capabilities and intentions, Chun continued. We'd like to address both concerns with a practical demonstration of how we prefer to use our technology. Zexteros studied the display with growing amazement. These are infrastructure projects? Joint projects between human and alien territories. Exactly. Gravitational manipulation makes certain engineering projects practical that were previously impossible. Artificial wormholes for faster-than-light communication. Stellar engineering to extend the lifespan of dying stars. Planetary climate control systems that could terraform marginal worlds. Commander Martinez highlighted specific projects on the display. The Keth Dominion has 17 worlds experiencing ecological collapse due to their sun's increasing instability. We could build stellar regulators to extend that star's life by several million years. The Goric Empire has been unable to settle certain resource-rich systems because of extreme gravitational anomalies, Dr. Wright added. We could neutralize those anomalies and open those systems to colonization. The Veltar Collective's bioships require very specific environmental conditions that limit their expansion, Captain Chen noted. We could create stable gravitational fields that would allow your ships to operate in previously hostile environments. War Chief Thakgar was silent for several long moments, his tactical mind clearly processing the implications. You offer to use your ultimate weapons as construction tools. War Chief, Dr. Wright said gently. They're not ultimate weapons. They're tools. The same gravitational generator that could crush a warship can also hold together a space habitat or redirect an asteroid away from a populated planet. It's all about how you choose to use the technology. Admiral Velnaris's bioform shifted to configurations indicating intense thought. This is a fundamental paradigm shift. You're proposing cooperation based on technological advantage rather than competition for resources or territory. Resources and territory become much less important when you can manipulate space-time, Commander Martinez explained. Why fight over a single system when you can create new stable orbits around existing stars? Why compete for rare minerals when you can compress matter to create them artificially? The concept was revolutionary. Galactic civilization had been built on scarcity, limited resources, finite living space, the constant struggle for advantage over competitors. Humans were proposing to make scarcity itself obsolete. But why? Zextera asked. You possess overwhelming technological superiority. You could simply take whatever you wanted from any of our civilizations. Why offer partnership instead? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. Admiral, let me tell you about human history. For thousands of years, our species made the same mistake you're assuming we'll make. We thought might made right. We fought constant wars over resources and territory, and we nearly destroyed ourselves in the process. Multiple times, Dr. Wright added grimly. We came very close to rendering our homeworld uninhabitable through warfare and environmental destruction. We learned, eventually, that competition and conflict are evolutionary dead ends, Commander Martinez continued. Cooperation and mutual benefit create exponentially better outcomes for everyone involved. Thakgar's holographic image flickered as he processed this information. Your species chose cooperation over conquest? Despite possessing superior force. Warchief, we learned that superior force only matters if your goal is destruction, Chen replied. Our goal is survival and growth, for ourselves and for anyone willing to work with us toward those goals. Admiral Velnaris reshaped her vocal components to produce sounds of amazement. You're offering to share technology that could revolutionize galactic civilization. What do you want in exchange? Knowledge, Dr. Wright said immediately. Your species have millions of years of combined scientific development. There are certainly discoveries you've made that we haven't even thought to look for yet. Biological engineering, energy manipulation, materials science. We could all benefit from sharing information. Cultural exchange, Commander Martinez added. Humans are curious about other ways of thinking and living. Your perspectives could help us avoid mistakes or discover new approaches to old problems. And friendship, Captain Chen concluded. The galaxy is a big place, with lots of challenges we haven't even encountered yet. Having allies and partners makes us all stronger. The alien representatives exchanged glances, or the equivalent among their various species. This was not how galactic politics traditionally operated. Superior technology usually meant domination and subjugation, not offers of partnership and mutual benefit. There is one thing we need to address, Zexthara said carefully. Your demonstrations 6 months ago created considerable fear among our populations. Many beings believe humanity poses an existential threat to their way of life. Captain Chen nodded gravely. We understand, and we regret the fear our demonstration caused. It was necessary to establish that we couldn't be bullied or coerced, but we never intended to terrorize anyone. Which brings us to our final proposal, Commander Martinez said, highlighting a new section of the star chart. We want to establish joint training programs for galactic military forces. This statement caused visible alarm among the alien representatives. Thakgar's image flickered as he leaned forward aggressively. You wish to train our warriors in your gravitational technologies. Actually, we want to train together in threat assessment and crisis response, Dr. Wright explained. The galaxy is full of natural dangers, rogue stars, gravitational anomalies, hostile environments. Our technology is powerful, but it's not perfect. We could all benefit from combining our different approaches to problem solving. Captain Chen activated another display showing various cosmic hazards. 6 months ago, we demonstrated how human technology could be used to destroy fleets. Today, we want to show how that same technology could be used to save worlds, and how much more effective it becomes when combined with your civilization's expertise. The conference continued for hours, but the fundamental transformation had already occurred. Fear was gradually being replaced by curiosity, suspicion by tentative hope. The galaxy's balance of power had indeed shifted dramatically, but perhaps not in the way anyone had expected. As the session concluded and the alien representatives prepared to return to their ships, Admiral Zexthara found herself standing beside Captain Chen at the massive observation window, looking out at Earth. Captain, she said quietly, I must admit that 6 months ago, I expected this conversation to end with humanity demanding our submission. Chen smiled, the expression warm and genuine. Admiral, submission is easy to obtain, but difficult to maintain. Partnership is harder to establish, but creates much better long-term outcomes. And if we had refused your offers? If we had chosen conflict instead of cooperation? Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. her gaze fixed on her homeworld. Then, we would have defended ourselves as necessary, and probably retreated back to human space to develop our own civilization in isolation. But I'm glad that's not the choice you made. Zextara watched the blue-white world turn slowly below them, thinking about the species that had emerged from that beautiful, deadly planet. Beings who had learned to harness the fundamental forces of the universe, then chosen to use those forces for creation rather than destruction. Perhaps, she thought, the galaxy was about to discover what true civilization looked like. As Terra Station continued its slow orbit around Earth, representatives of dozens of species worked together to draft the first truly galactic alliance in recorded history, not born from conquest or threat, but from the simple human belief that the universe worked better when everyone worked together. The age of fear had ended. The age of cooperation had begun.